We're with Capturis, working on their so-called employee competency tool. So a little bit of an agenda of what we're going to do today. Introduction about our company, our problem and our solution to it, and then what progress we've made, and then some kind of reflections and what's going to happen next. And then we'll open up for Q&A. So for introductions, my name is David Schwartz. I'm a junior here.
Quinn Crest, senior.
I guess all seniors.
I'm Anjita Mishra. I'm a senior as well.
I'm Vishal. I'm senior as well.
And I think a lot of us chose this project because we liked how it allowed us to be really creative with how we implement the website. And we're kind of interested in web development, and our company's Capturis, and they liked us so much that they actually came and visited us today for the presentation. So these are the guys that help us out with the project and help us set it up. So a little bit about Capturis. They have a few locations: Mandan, Shawano, I think, if I'm pronouncing that right, and Cedar Rapids. But what we work with is our mentors are in Mandan. It's where the majority of the people are. As you can see, it's a total of about 178 people for Capturis. So, what Capturis does is they're a utility bill. They help large corporations pay utility bills. So they help them with effective utility bill services. They have over 250 customers, and they help them with paying their bills, and then they have services that help them track their spending, their energy spending, to keep it under budget. And they're actually owned by the software users, and so that opens up to a degree of transparency with them. And so surprisingly, they have actually 3 of their original customers that they've been working with ever since they started. So so the problem they have is that they evaluate their employees at a team-based level, and this can allow biases to be brought in when you're evaluating your employees. And so they need a tool that will allow them to objectively evaluate different employees based on with respect to other employees in similar positions. And this analyses will allow them to better evaluate their employees and better evaluate them for that's what I'm looking for.
Employee performance.
Performance. So our solution is a web-based application, and it will store all the data that they need for the employees. So you'll have different data for employees, like position, role, and the set of skills, and then you'll have a hierarchy of leaders above employees, and the leaders will be able to rate their employees based off of like the proficiency that they have in certain skills, and then they'll have tools to compare different employees with the same position, and this is a more objective way to analyze your employees. So what we'll be using specifically is a web application we'll be writing it in TypeScript and Java with Angular 7 for the front end. And then we currently have a Apache Tomcat for our web server, and then a Postgres database, which is currently being hosted at ESU. But obviously will be switched after we deploy the application. And now I'll hand it off to Quinn, and he'll talk about the schedule and different progress we have currently.
Okay. Thanks, David. So we've split up our work into the next 3 sprints we have, and we're rounding on the end of sprint 2. Sadly, due to some unexpected extra work with setting up the back end and getting a little confused with that, we fell behind schedule with sprint 2. So a lot of that work will be brought into the following sprints. But we have completed some of the user points for that sprint thanks to Vishal and Angela working on some of the UI. So moving forward, the majority of those points will get moved forward. So starting with the progress, the first thing that we got set up was the Postgres database it's hosted on the NDSU servers. There we're storing the tables for like employees, positions, roles, skills, proficiencies, login data, stuff like that. So like anything that the application would need to have data stored for. So then after that, we kind of hit the wall of the issue of getting the backend set up. We now have a Java web service up and running to send HTTP requests out to the database. So we'll have the Angular project interface with that server, sending out an HTTP request, and then the server will handle doing the queries to the database. David's actually prepared a couple HTTP requests that we can show you right now.
Yep. So we got so the way HTTP works for those that are unfamiliar is that in the URL where you input strings for to redirect to websites, you can also put in sort of like parameters in there, and then that's used to call our API, and then you can use this to update the database. And so we have a few examples here, like this one. If you have a valid username and password, and then an ID, you can get a single employee. And so you can see right now we have Bear Grylls here. His ID is 21. And if you remove the ID, then you can get everyone. And we can also update information. So we can update, we have the Dark Knight in here, and we can update him to make him we can make him an admin and a leader. And we can also add new information here. We can see in the database the way it is currently. But if we post someone, if we post Dwayne Johnson, we should be able to see him in here. There he is in our current database. And then we can also delete Dwayne because he's not an employee at Capturis. And so that's how our API works.
So continuing on, we had the login UI that has been completed in Angular by Vishal. Here's just we didn't, since we don't have functionality and it's all hard coded, we didn't see any point in demoing this, so we just gave a screenshot of our progress on this. So there is a screenshot of Vishal's work, and the login page will verify the user's login and redirect to whatever dashboard that they are allowed to be at. So we have 3 dashboards: the admin, leader, and employee dashboard. And depending on what credentials that they have, like are they a leader, then they'll go to the leader dashboard, and then they'll have the option to be able to redirect to the admin dashboard. So that here again, we have UI complete. Angela has completed some of the admin dashboard stuff. So she completed getting tables, but due to the backend not being completed, she was not able to connect it to the database. So she just hard-coded some data into the tables just to see how it would function. And then she has also made some progress on the hamburger menu, but we do not have images of those. And then now I'll pass it off to Angela, and she will talk about some of the issues, risks, and next steps after this.
Thank you, Quinn. So this project has been a great learning experience for us, but we have encountered some issues and risks, as you can see on the slide. The risk that we are facing right now is because all of the software is very new to us. We are still taking time to familiarize with ourselves, and it took us some time to learn how it works, and then to start working on what we want it to do. So that took us some time, so that is why we are a little bit behind on our back end, especially using Maven and Glassfish. And another issue that we are having right now, like Quinn mentioned, is we are not able to fully implement the functionality for the admin dashboard and the login page right now. And that is what we hope to achieve by the next sprint. And the risks that is closed right now is we have not spent so much time working on the application requirements. We would have spent more time to refactor the code. So that is the risk and issues that we have up until now, but at what we are standing, we feel pretty good about it because we have most of the work done, and we hope to achieve even more in the next few weeks. Moving on to the next user story point analysis. Like Quinn mentioned, this is the work that we have done, and we have touched on all the goals that we hope to achieve by midterm, but we were not able to fully implement some of those functions. But as he mentioned before, we set up an admin dashboard, and because we were not able to set up the backend by then, all of the data on the data tables are just hard-coded, so that is why we did not think it would be very useful to demo it, because all of the data is just hard-coded right now. And another one is we have a visual representation of the database tables. That is something we accomplished. And also we were able to set up a login page, and because we have not set it up with the database yet, that is also something we are doing in progress. And like Quinn mentioned before, the hamburger menu, we had some problems with it. So right now it's just an icon that is clickable, but it does not redirect to any place, and we are working on that. But in summary, the total user story that we have completed right now is 7.5, and most of it is in progress, so we're still feeling pretty good about our project. And moving on to the reflection on what we have learned through this whole experience, we have familiarized ourselves with so many new software and technologies that we had never worked before, so none of us had any experience working with Angular, and now we have caught up on that. We also set up a new IDE for Java, which is IntelliJ, and we are pretty familiar with that now too. We set up the database server, and we have gained a very good understanding of how much time it takes for the user stories to be completed. So moving forward, we hope to plan better, and we also gained experience working with the RESTful API web service. That is all for the reflection that we have for this project. So the next steps will be covered by Vishal, who will walk you through it.
Okay, so our next step is like, as we have completed our login AI, so our main step is to connect it to the database and then authorize the user based on their admin, employee, or leader. And then other ways, like we have to create our dashboards for the admins, for the employees, and for the leaders as well. And then we have to make an hamburger menus so that the navigation or the redirection should be easier for them. This is the employee table we are gonna make. Employee have this is the admin page. So they have like 5 dashboards. Their employees, position, roles, skills, and proficiency. For the employees, we have name, the username, and the password for that, and then what are their roles, if they are a leader, if they are a admin as well. And then for the position, they are like what are their position of the employees, their grades, their wages, and their like minimum and the maximum wage. And then so what are the roles of the employees, like what are the so this dashboard will have the description, the positions, and they can edit and save. Admin can edit and save the roles as well. And for the skills, like what are their skills related to that role, and then even this admin can also edit and remove, save the skills as well. And for the proficiency, it's just like what are the roles, what are the skills, and what are the proficiencies. So they can also edit the proficiencies of all the roles of the employees. And this is the hamburger menu. For the admin, there will be a leader navigation if he is a leader or not. and for the he'll have a navigation to the employee as well. Here we have a logout and a change password stuff, and yeah, this is generally the hamburger menu for the admin page. Now for the leader, so in leader they'll have their the list of the employees under their name, and then what are their job description or their role, and then they can set the equity is I think intensity multiplied by proficiency, and then they can edit the proficiency of the employee as well. So yeah, this is the position. This is the description of the position, and then what are the roles associated with that. And then yeah, so these are like the proficiency scale 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They can just set their proficiency level of employees. And then the last one we are gonna do is employee dashboard. There will be one table which shows their name, their personal information, and then they have their role, and they can add a new role, but the proficiency would set to default. It would be default to 0, and after that the leader can check, and then and then they can set their proficiency according to what they have. So yeah, for all this, then we are ready for the questions. Yeah.
I guess, is there any utility that helps when setting proficiency? Otherwise, you might run into an issue where you're looking at all these different people and you're just picking arbitrary numbers, and so you wind up saying, Steve and Bob are both 4s, but really they shouldn't be, or you, due to the way you enter data, it's like John gets put in and he's a 3, and then Sally's better than John, so we'll put Sally at a 4, but then if you look, well, now I'm dealing with somebody better than Sally, do I have to say they're a 5? Is there kind of some system in place to help make sure that the data you're entering is actually good, so you're not just throwing numbers in that kind of end up meaningless?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we have that 0 through 5 scale of, there was a description of the 0 through 5 for the proficiencies, and it was like 0 was like not knowledgeable, 1 was like new, and it like had a set level for, and it gave a description for each level.
Slightly more descriptive, but if there isn't any strict criteria, like can do this, it's like something to check against.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the IMDb problem where some new movie comes out and it's the best ever, and so it's a 9.5, and it's like superhero movie 87 is now better than Citizen Kane and all of this other cinema. So is there something to kind of help prevent that, or?
Aside from the general descriptions, like, well, obviously we'll have better descriptions on there than just wow. So, but currently we don't have a basis other than just the basic descriptions of what the different proficiencies are for each skill. So.
And really that was the intent of what the tool's for, is because right now there isn't really a consistency across the different teams. So here with the hierarchy, the highest level can see what everybody's selecting for their employees and then see that comparison in that sense. Because right now they're individualized amongst the different teams. So then when they do get together, they say, wait, you say yours is a 4, but mine's a 3. I think mine should maybe be higher than yours.
Okay.
I see one right there. You, yeah.
What kind of security measures does Postgres offer for your database management? There's a lot of personally identifiable information on there.
So, you mean like when accessing the data in the database?
Yeah, making sure an employee doesn't go and take everyone's salary.
So in the RESTful API on the web service, before the HTTP request is handled, it authenticates the user every time. Every time an HTTP request is sent to it, it is authenticated before it is run.
Yep. So so they're inside our database. There's the employee table, and then there's is admin and is leader. And so if you want to perform actions that only an admin would be able to do, the database will check if is leader or if is admin will equal true, and then you'll be able to change the wages of different employees. And then if you want to do leader actions, like changing proficiencies of only your employees, then they would check is leader equals true, and they would also check the hierarchy of where you are. Yep.
Several questions actually. So I saw that you're using RESTful API, but some of the calls that I saw that you inserted the user were using put, right? But deleting the user, you have to use phpMyAdmin. Are those simply not implemented? Are you sending like delete requests directly into the RESTful API? You're supposed to use a post to,
yeah, we used
to fetch stuff, put to insert, put to update, posts to insert, delete to delete.
Yeah, that's what we did. We had a post which created Dwayne Johnson, and then
To delete, I saw you coming in and deleting it in phpMyAdmin versus sending a delete request.
we have a delete request. Is this what you mean here?
Oh yeah, okay.
Yep.
What do you do to prevent injection attacks and so on and so forth? How are you sanitizing all the inputs, or what if I put some random SQL code as part of a request somewhere? Are you taking care of that as well?
We actually just recently got the database connected because, like we said before, we're having a hard time with Glassfish. So, but you will definitely need to look into that after we get this connected to Angular. So.
And another question was, are you encrypting any credentials inside of the database? Are they encrypted currently? So if this database gets leaked somewhere and things happen, all that is going to be exposed, any of that is encrypted?
The password, it is planned to have the password encrypted, which isn't implemented yet, obviously. But other than that, we don't have any plans for encrypted. So.
Okay, and another question was, so in case of authentication, you mentioned that you authenticate on every single request.
Right.
Whereas usually by RESTful standards, I'm not sure that's done. So you don't call authentication request first, then you create some sort of token or a session ID, and then you can run all those requests. Are you passing the username and the password with every single request?
Yes. Currently, we are.
Any particular reason why you don't authenticate first and set a session? Just to make it easier?
This is my first time working with RESTful API, so I wasn't actually aware of that. I'm putting this together a few days ago. So.
Okay, well, if it matters, the suggestion is you run and authenticate, you set a session ID, and from that on, you don't have to worry about with that at all.
With there, okay. I'll check that in.
Very good project otherwise, I mean, good job.
Thank you.
You indicated you're a little behind the plan. What's your confidence level on getting everything by the time you're all done?
We're on like a 0 to 10 scale. I would have been on a 9 before, and now I'm on like an 8. It only kicked me down about 1. So
Yeah. We're planning on working a lot on it. Spring break. Vishal and Angela have become more experienced with Angular, and I've become more experienced with the back end. And so, like our mentor Roy said, that setting up the database would probably have been the hard part, and we got something concrete down now, and I'm feeling a lot more confident with setting up the API, and I'm sure those guys over there are feeling more confident with Angular.
Yeah. I mean, the backend is set up, so I think we'll be fine with that now.
Yeah.
The Angular itself is pretty straightforward. Just the backend was our crux for a while. So.
Mm-hmm.
I guess how much communication is going in between the team members? Because in the beginning, you said that you were 6 story points, then you said you were at 7.5, and then you said that you switched from a Maven to Glassfish to Tomcat, but then later in the presentation, you said that you were back on Maven. Like, how much communication is going on between you guys?
What we meant to say is what we previously used Maven and Glassfish, and now we're using Tomcat. But
yeah, but you said that at the beginning, but later on you said that you were on Maven.
think what we were all working on the presentation last night, so I assume what happened was somebody noticed something wrong later in the slides and forgot to go back and change it. So that was probably just a miss or an oopsie on our part.
To answer the question, we usually divide up tasks weekly. Like we'll look at our user stories and we'll see how this can be split up, and usually on a Friday we'll speak up and split up Angular tasks and backend tasks, and then later throughout the week we'll if we need.
I think on generally Thursday we have a video calling, and then we discuss all our things with what we did.
Yeah, as a team usually.
We often also meet in person sometimes during the weekend and take that time to just work together too.
Yeah.
One more question regarding security. So this tool will be used internally only in the incorporation, but will never be accessible from outside of the network at all?
Yes.
And I'm assuming you guys are going to be using HTTPS eventually. The SSL encryption, right? Because anyone on the LAN network can see that password inside of your URI, and if you have a malicious employee, you can just go to the traffic.
Yeah.
That's the password. I'm going to log in and delete everyone. Or I'm going to demote this person and say he's 0.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea to add HTTPS.
And I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure depending on the web server, the part of the host name, if it's even if your password is in the plain text, it's part of the URI. It actually might be also visible even if you're SSL. I'm not 100% sure. So something to look into. Because on the LAN, there's no security if you encrypt anything at all. So be aware of that as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
I have a question. You're with the company, right? Have you considered at any point tying in a testing system to this? I think that would probably kind of answer what he was discussing earlier. You need an objective way for sometimes the company to be measured. I know a lot of companies, and I'm not saying yours, but I've worked in corporate world, and it really is who scratches my back better in many ways. You know, you don't mean to, but you see one person working harder than the other. That's why I'm wondering if there's not an objective way for these guys to. That's just a thought. It's nothing about what you guys are doing. It's nothing about that. Y'all are doing fine, but it's just a thought you might want to consider.
Our plan long term would be to have training units that apply to the different skills that are testable, so that they can prove that they actually have that skill.
Okay, cool.
But for this project, that's just
too much. You can't do everything with one project. I was just curious.
All right. Thank you.